Gold Cup last year. Your favourite course, of course, Sandown Park, but I don't have to remind you, after being first past the post on Proud Tarquin, you were then disqualified in favour of Ron Barry and the Dickler.
And the Dickler now looming up. This is a real danger to Proud Tarquin, and John must be looking across at Ron Barry. They have one to go. It's Proud Tarquin and the Dickler on the near side, and there's little choose between them. They've got now this uphill drooling finish, and it's Proud Tarquin, John Oaksey, holding the Dickler on the near side, Ron Barry, but the race is not over yet. As they run up towards the line, it's going to be a desperately near thing. Proud Tarquin on the far side, the Dickler on the near side, Inkslinger in third.
It just so happens that we've had dozens of requests in our feature favourite finishes to see that again, and also to hear from John exactly what happened. So we can have a look at this again on HS on the patrol film. And John, take us through it, if you will.
Well, Proud Tarquin had done it before. He had tended to duck to his left at the last fence. He lost the race by doing it at Lingfield. Now you see him going to his left, going towards the Dickler, and I had slightly anticipated it and got my whip in my left hand, and I hit him down the neck, and he went back away from the Dickler. But there's no doubt that, as you could see from that head-on film, he had, partly really because the Dickler took avoiding action as Tarky came towards him, the Dickler was a little bit taken out of his stride. Personally, I think it's doubtful whether it was enough to found a successful objection on, but these things always are doubtful, and there was, as you saw from that picture.
In the packed stand, binoculars were trained on the 1.25 mile start, and at just after 8:20, the starter sends them on their way. John Oaksey jumps Light of Zion off in front, and despite the fact they're conceding £8 to Brough and Nice Bounty, he obviously intends to try to make all the running. Coming up to the post on the first circuit, it's still Light of Zion, but the pace is by no means fast, and John is clearly adopting waiting in front tactics. At the far turn, John Oaksey kicks Light of Zion on and quickly gains a 4-length advantage. But at this stage, Brough does not seem unduly worried. Down the far side, there's still no change in order, but John steals a glance over his shoulder, and Brough still hasn't asked a serious question of Nice Bounty. As they race towards the home straight, the stewards are keeping a sharp eye on proceedings, whilst the crowd encourage their fancy. In line for home now, and the race is really on in earnest. Those 4 lengths stolen by John Oaksey early in the race are proving hard to peg back. But now Brough Scott is hard at work, and Nice Bounty is quickly closing the gap. But the post comes too soon, and John keeps Light of Zion going to hold on by a rapidly diminishing length, and scores a memorable victory. Nice Bounty had been made hot favourite, and as the crowd left the stand, no doubt many were feeling light in the pocket. But Light of Zion seemed pleased. I asked John Oaksey if Brough would claim it was a case of age before beauty.
I wouldn't have put it quite like that, except that
I would. I would.
The beauty part was my horse, which just happens to really like galloping, and she likes to be in front, and she was marvellous. And poor old Scott.
The thing is, when you're confronted by an old geriatric like this, the first thing you have down at the start when you're looking at him trembling is sympathy.
Oaksey, who has literally just flown back and landed at Heathrow this morning after watching the Kentucky Derby. After seeing that again, John, and seeing it live, what are your thoughts now on Oaksey?
Well, my first thought was that he stays a mile really well, and we don't know that he stays any farther, and that suggested that he doesn't stay much farther. And the first thing that Pat Valenzuela said when the microphone was first shoved under his nose was he didn't get home, he didn't stay. Or didn't get home means he didn't stay. Yeah. He's altered that and said a lot of other things since. But I don't know, for me, he didn't stay. I do think that with wisdom after the event, he didn't ride a particularly brilliant race on him, because you see they went no gallop up the straight, so why the hell yank back and get in behind them, and then have to come all the way round and then pass 16 horses in 2 furlongs.
Here he is. This is when, but Pat Valenzuela said he actually didn't move on him. He's not asking him to quick, and he's just putting down a set of goggles there, and he's cruising.
I agree. He certainly isn't moving on him. Nevertheless, to pass horses that are going at that rate, at this stage they were covering the quarters in about 25 seconds, and to pass them at that speed, you've got to use up an awful lot of energy. I know that he did it in the 2-year-old race, but he was about a stone in front of the 2-year-olds. He isn't that far, we now know, in front of these 3-year-olds.
Here he comes now, and just as this point, everybody was standing now saying, here comes Oaksey, and as soon as he hits the home straight, it's like hitting a brick wall.
It really does seem that the petrol runs out. Something runs out. At this stage, we'll see. It's just after they line up for home. Now, he's gone. He's dead.
Well, what about, let's say nothing away from Lily T, and Pat Day strived for 20 years to win the Derby, and he wins it, but he does use the whip.
Well, yes, he's a born-again Christian, but his feet wouldn't have touched the ground in England if the moment he got off, he would have been...
It was the voice, the symbol, the very conscience of the racing game. But it all began with the riding. John was not the most gifted pilot to ever sit on a horse, but very few have ever been as enthusiastic for as long. The origin of amateur is based on ammo, the word to love. John adored horses and riding, and amateur or no amateur, he was a competitive little basket to boot. The judge's son, who gave up the law to write for the Daily Telegraph on the Horse and Hound, rode into the big time and won.
And it's Kirsten, the Gold Cup heroine, over on the far side on the right of the picture. Gaia coming very fast with Caesar's Helm. Mandarin in fourth place, Taxidermist fifth. Into this final fence now, and it's Kirsten over from Caesar's Helm. Gaia is third, Mandarin is fourth, and Taxidermist is fifth. As they race towards the line, it's the mare Kirsten over on the far side, Caesar's Helm on the stern side, and Taxidermist putting in a tremendous finish now, and it's Kirsten leading from Taxidermist, and Taxidermist fast catching Kirsten at the line, and it's Kirsten and Taxidermist as they pass the line, and Taxidermist may have got up. This looks as though it'll be a photo.
Yet John liked to share his success, not just with TV viewers, but with his millions of readers who for years were treated to wonderfully written first-hand accounts of how it felt out there on the track. Indeed, John's immediate dictated report of his agonising Grand National defeat on Carrickbeg ranks amongst the finest pieces of sports copy ever filed in any field. John was a competitor, but he was compassionate, and that side of his character has a lasting tribute in the Injured Jockeys Fund, which he created, inspired, and drove to be a major provider for those in need. For countless of people, some famous but mostly unknown, John has made a difference. For me, for you, for all of us, his example should ever remain an inspiration.
It's beneficial beyond belief to people when they're trying to get back on their feet from, it's not the broken collarbones and the broken leg or you've done your knee. They're things that get better on their own. They've got great physios here to help people. But it's when you're a little bit worse than that, when you've got life-threatening injuries, this is just an absolutely tip-top place to come to get better.